Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Monster Families. Today, we're going to be looking at a monster which is a pretty simple type. It is one of the first ones that you encounter in the game. It's called a Gargantuan beast, or the monster family type is actually known as the Wendigo. The Wendigo encompasses quite a few different types of these beasts, from the Gargantuan beast, the Brute, the Yeti, which is the ice variant, the Crusher, and the Wailing beast, which is actually one of the few monsters in the game that is immune to magic. Let's go over the stats on this particular monster, and I'll talk about it. So first off, one of the things that you're going to notice about these monsters is that they almost always tend to be immune to cold. Um, in fact, in most scenarios, with the exception of the Wailing Beast, they are 100 or even higher percent immune to cold. These are some of the monsters that are what are called unbreakably immune. Even in nightmare difficulty, some of them have a cold resistance, but for the most part, they don't. So until you get to hell difficulty, that's when they really start to get nasty. Now, the Crusher has 140% cold resistance, which basically makes him unbreakably immune unless you have a Sunder Charm, which is the only really way that you can break his immunity. Most of them don't really have much resistances otherwise. As you can see, there's no poison resistance on any of them. Almost none of them have any kind of lightning resistance, with the exception of the Crusher, which has 50%. Almost none of them have any poison resistance, with the exception of the Wailing Beast, which is immune to poison. Or, sorry, magic resistance. That's magic resistance. But none of them have poison resistance. The Wailing Beast is immune to magic, and he has really high magic resistance in both Nightmare and normal difficulty. You will only find these, though, in, like, temples in Act 3. They're actually quite uncommon monsters. However, if you go into the temples, you'll find them, and I can show you some of those. The damage resistance, physical damage reduction, is 50% in Hell, but 0% in all other difficulties. And it's one of the reasons why in Hell difficulty, you generally have to worry about physical damage reduction of methods like Amplify Damage or Decrepify, because most monsters in physical or in Hell difficulty have some type of physical damage reduction. They also have the ability to block by was it 4 to 23%, depending on the monster type. Some monsters have innate block built in, and the Wendigo is one of them. Or, well, the Wendigo class type is one of them. They tend to have particularly high HP, especially for like their level, and in general, you'll have a little bit of a trouble killing them at lower difficulties due to their high physical damage reduction in Hell, and also their basically immunity to cold damage, which also makes them a little bit of an issue. But they appear all over the place. Not only are they in Act 1, but you will also encounter them like in Act 2 in Canyon of the Magi, more often than not. Of course, not always, I think, but most of the time. Let's see if we have them here in this particular one. Doesn't look like it. Looks like we got Spear Cats, Whip Cats, which are two different types, by the way, Spear Cats and Whip Cats. And then I don't see the third monster type here, though. There's always three monster types. And I do not see the third monster type in the... Oh, there we go, maggots. So in this particular case, we got maggots. Let's go take a look at the magic immune ones, which are going to be located in the temples. So generally, if you're looking for the magic immune ones, although I don't know why anybody would, they generally appear inside the temples. It's one of the only places that you'll find the magic immune Wailing Beasts. These are the Wailing Beasts right here. And as you can see, they're basically the same exact things, except they're immune to magic, and they cannot be hurt by magic. They are beasts, so this is actually one of the few ones that is immune to holy magic as well. So in most situations, like if you have an undead monster that is immune to magic, they can be damaged by holy bolts, which is magic damage, but bypasses the immunity of undead. However, because these magic immune monsters are beasts, they are one of the few monsters in the game which are immune to holy bolt, blessed hammer, and also, of course, the bone spear, bone spirit, teeth, etc. They're not particularly very nasty because most people don't deal magic damage, and I think that they were specifically set up to counter builds, like Bone Spear or Blessed Hammer. So if you do go in there as a Bone Spear or Blessed Hammer character, it could be a little spicy. Not only do they exist in Act 1, Act 2, and also Act 3, but they also exist in Act 5 as a special monster type known as the Yeti, which is essentially immune to cold. And they're usually in the Frozen River in Crystalline Passage. They also exist in Crystalline Passage as well. So as you're running through here, if you do get lucky enough to get these snowdrifters, the snowdrifters are also in here. Now, as revives, they actually do make pretty darn good revives. And let's play around with those really quickly. I hate these cave leapers. They're like just horrible. So let's go ahead and resurrect the snowdrifters.
Not enough mana.
And let's see what they look like as revives. Now, most monsters, when it comes to revives, what happens is they just simply use the same AI that they had when they were monsters. So if the AI on the monsters is bad, then the monsters will be bad revives. In this particular case, the AI is actually kind of good. They also retain their ability to stun targets, as you can see. The stunning effect that they have is actually kind of nice. It allows them to kind of lock down targets. And they also have a chance of dealing fire damage. The Wailing Beasts have a chance to deal fire damage in Nightmare in Hell, but they are primarily physical damage monsters, with the exception of the Wailing Beasts. So in most cases, when you're fighting these particular monsters, you only really have to worry for the physical damage, right? These guys, like I said, are unbreakably cold immune, so unless you're running a Cold Sunder, you're generally not going to be able to kill them with a cold damage character. And they're particularly nasty because of how high that resistance is. So even if you're running things like Conviction Aura, even if you have something like, negative resistances and so forth and so on, even if you have lower resistance, even if you apply Conviction, lower resistance, and negative res all to the target at the same time, they are unfortunately just too strong. The cold resistance that they have is just too high. There's no way you're ever going to be able to bypass it. Even if you had, so for instance, if they're 140% cold resistant, even if you have like I believe, what is it, like 17.5, and then also like what is it, like we'll go high, we'll say 10 from the lower resistance, it's still not going to break their immunity. And if they happen to roll with something like Cold Enchanted, good luck, because Cold Enchanted is going to add even more on top of that. That's why the Sunders work so good on these guys, because it will break their resistance no matter how high their cold resistance is, which allows you to bypass that entire issue. Now, there's no real way to break magic immunity. Even if you use the Sunder, that's only going to bring them down to 95% resistant, and unfortunately, that's just not low enough to really be killable. I mean, you can kill them, but it's going to take you quite some time. These guys can be particularly nasty if they roll with things like extra fast, might enchanted, extra strong, cursed, especially when they are supported by fanaticism, might aura, etc. They can definitely be quite a handful. Overall, though, kind of a fun monster. Big, giant, hulking creatures, kind of resemblance of Yetis, and they do pretty good damage too. So, not bad. I don't necessarily think they're the best revives in the game, but they're definitely better than like Fallen. They're definitely better than like regular zombies that wander around and don't attack things. Their AI is better, their physical damage is better, and their ability to stun targets can also be useful. Their ability to stun targets can be a little bit of a detractor, though, because obviously if the monster is stunned, they're not fighting back. And if they're not fighting back and you happen to be running things like Thorns, which is a pretty common thing for necromancers to run, well, the monsters won't be fighting back, so they're not going to be hitting your monsters, and they won't be reflecting any damage, which is going to lower your overall damage output. So keep that in mind when you think about them for revives if you are running, Thorns damage. But still decent revives, across the board. There are better choices. I wouldn't specifically go hunt them down, but if I had to choose between those and Fallen, like in Act 1, for instance, when you're going into Cold Plains, as an example, and you're finding your choices are basically what? Fallen and, you know, like some spear women. And then you might have access to the brutes as well. The brutes are going to be better than a lot of them. The spear women are pretty good. The fallen are terrible. The bloodhawks are terrible. Like a lot of the stuff that you're going to get in like normal difficulty aren't really the greatest revives, and you kind of want to avoid the fallen in general because they run away every single time something dies, even if it's something that you're killing, or one of your minions dies, they all run away, and that's just it's pretty bad. So as far as minions go, the brutes are definitely a hell of a lot better than a lot of the trash that you'll find in Act 1. I think that's pretty much it for the brutes. As always, I'd appreciate you guys and gals joining me for these videos. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the content. And as always, keep watching.